In this After Effects tutorial, we're going to talk about spatial interpolation. Let's get to it. After Effects makes a clear distinction between changes over time and changes in space. Changes in space would be when something moves in the X, Y, and or Z parameters. So if I move this like yay, then we have changes in space. Changes over time are exactly that, things that over time change. And you can say, but Luisa, this is just silly, because if it's changing in space, it's doing so over time. And I would agree with you 100%. But not everything that changes in time changes in space. If I keyframe opacity, it's changing over time, but it's not moving. So After Effects makes a very clear distinction between changes in space and changes in time. In this movie, we're going to talk about changes in space. Changes in space. Spatial interpolation. And here we go. I'm going to put the solid back in. I'm going to make it as long as the entire composition. And now I'm going to press S for scale, and I'm going to globally change it to 20%. I'm just going to add some position keyframes. P for position. I'll start here at the beginning. And 1 and 2. If it's moving from point A to point B in a straight line, that's called linear interpolation. Linear. 2 points in space. It's going from here to here in a straight line. It doesn't matter how that straight line is, how it's angled, blah, blah, blah. It's a straight line. Now, notice that the path between the first keyframe and the last keyframe is made out of these dots. These dots represent frames, but in reality, I prefer to say that they represent moments in time. But we're talking about spatial interpolation. Oh yes, but remember, spatial contains temporal because it's moving in space, but it's doing so in time. What I want to get at is this. One of these dots doesn't look like the others. That reminds me of a little children's TV show. That's because this is a handle. If I click and hold and drag this one dot, I am now going from point A to point B, not in a straight line. I still only have 2 keyframes. I don't have more than that. But I'm not going in a straight line anymore. This is known as Bezier interpolation. Linear, straight line. Bezier, not straight line. Oh, okay. Notice that this keyframe has 1 handle and this one has 1 handle. And I can change the handles however I want. But why not 1 handle? I'm sure you have seen 2. That's because this first keyframe is not coming from anywhere. And this last keyframe is not going anywhere. However, and I'm going to separate these now, if I were to add a keyframe in the middle, it would have 2 handles because it's coming from somewhere and it's going somewhere. These handles, and I'm going to lower these like yay so you can see it better. These handles work as follows. By default, when one goes down, the other one goes up to maintain the smoothness of the curve. This is known as continuous Bezier. You don't have to remember the names, who cares? But it's called continuous. The handles have an inverse relationship. If I click and hold on the pen tool and I get the convert vertex tool, I can now turn these handles into non-continuous Bezier. But look what happens when I click on this one. It's like, oh, wait a minute, I wanted both of them to lower. Okay, I can do it like that. The reason for that is because if you're using the convert vertex tool, it's going from continuous to non-continuous, back to continuous each and every time, which is why for these, I prefer not to use that tool, or rather to get to that tool via a shortcut. See how I have the selection tool selected? Here you go, the handles are related. I can press and hold the Alt key, which is Option on the Mac, and I can now get rid of the relationship between the curves, and now I have non-continuous Bezier. The handles are independent from each other. If I want them to be dependent again, press and hold Alt, Option on the Mac. If I use that on the keyframe itself, nothing happens. Other than if you double click a keyframe, then the playhead moves there in time, but whatever. I am now going to use the convert vertex tool, and I'm going to use it on the keyframe, not on the handle. Look at this, linear, 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 straight line. Auto Bezier, Auto Bezier, Auto Bezier. Auto Bezier means you're not in charge of the curve. After Effects is. And I can just change these however I want. And notice that it's giving me the dots representing the handles, but it's not giving me the handles. Okay. Linear, Bezier. I want you to be linear. I want you to be linear. I want you to be linear. What happens if you forget and then you go, oh my God, Luisa, I forgot that these tools do this or whatever? You can select one keyframe or all of them, it doesn't really matter, and then go to Animation, Keyframe Interpolation, and change the Spatial Interpolation to either Auto, Continuous, or plain vanilla non-continuous Bezier. If you do it to Auto, then you see the dots, but not the handle, and you're not in charge of the curvature. If you change it to continuous, you see the handles, and they are connected one to the other. If you change it to non-continuous, which is plain vanilla Bezier, then now it doesn't matter how you change it, the handles are not connected to each other. So remembering these names is actually quite irrelevant. Who cares, right? I mean, who cares that you remember this is linear, this is Bezier, this is whatever. It doesn't matter, right? But you do need to remember how to change these from the curvy thingy to the non-curvy thingy. You know? I know, I'm so technical. Curvy thingy. I'm going to go back to keyframe interpolation, and I'm going to change this to linear. Linear. Straight line. So when I changed the preferences, I actually changed it so that the default is not linear. Linear, Bezier. So this was spatial interpolation. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.